Welcome to tonight's debate. My name is Sarah Peake and I'm the chairman and Portia Marshall is the timekeeper. The adjudicator is Mr. Tony Huey. The topic for this debate is that the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race should be permanently cancelled. The affirmative team seated to my right is St. Peter's Girls' School White. The negative team seated to my left is St. Peter's Girls' School Blue. Speaking time for this debate is 5 minutes. A single warning bell will sound 1 minute before the speaking time, and a double bell will sound at the speaking time. A continuous bell may be rung 30 seconds after the speaking time, in which case the speaker must sit down immediately. Please ensure that your mobile phones and other electronic devices are switched off. I declare this debate open and call upon the first affirmative speaker, Sherry Wong.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's topic is that the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race should be permanently cancelled. We, the affirmative team, strongly believe that this statement is true. We have defined the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race as the annual dog sled competition in Alaska since 1973. Additionally, we define the race as a competition where dog drivers, also called mushers, and a dog team consisting of 12 to 16 dogs, race from Anchorage to Nome, covering 1,000 miles through the most beautiful untouched terrains, to quote the description of the race. We define permanently cancelled as a revocation of the race forever. Tonight, as first speaker, I will be discussing the ethical side of the argument, including the increased health risk to these dogs as a result of the event, and the lack of Iditarod rules to prevent these risks. Our second speaker will then talk about the financial and environmental side of the argument. Our third speaker will then rebut and sum up our case. My first point is that many of the dogs participating in the Iditarod race are forced to undergo harsh conditions inflicted by their owners and the environment during the race and training. In order to have success in the competition, the dogs have to exercise every day to maintain their athletic ability. According to the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals organisation, these dogs are forced to run an average of 100 miles per day in that frozen tundra environment. Though the dogs participating are bred for their stamina against the cold, they're not invincible to the diseases, including pneumonia and hypothermia and more. In fact, 50 to 70% of the dogs who enter the race suffer from exercise-induced stomach diseases, consequent to the competition, according to the Anchorage Daily News. By permanently cancelling the race, the dogs' livelihoods would be improved. Through the past 45 years, over 150 deaths of the participating dogs have been recorded by the Sled Dog Action Coalition, not including the dogs that die immediately after the race, thus showing the race's extreme demands. In the 2018 race, 350 dogs were physically unable to continue due to exhaustion, illness, or injuries, so they were just dropped in the middle of nowhere, according to the Doglington Post. Moreover, many sled dog breeders have freely admitted that the surplus dogs are killed, or if the animal is not fast enough, fit enough, or meet certain aesthetic standards, according to the PETA organisation. Hence, the banning of the Iditarod race will decrease unnecessary exposure to health risks and ultimately the death of these dogs. My second point is that the current Iditarod rules do not protect the dog's well-being, but rather promotes the exploitation of these animals for entertainment and economic benefits. Weapons like whips are not prohibited in the Iditarod rules, allowing it to be quoted from the former musher Ashley Keith, a common training device used among the dog mushers. This form of abusive treatment demonstrates Iditarod's prevalence of animal cruelty and the lack of rule enforcement. In addition, Rule 42 of the official Iditarod rulebook includes a list of types of deaths that are accepted and considered unpreventable, demonstrating how little the dog's welfare is prioritized. Even if the mushers were to violate the Iditarod rules, there would be no penalties, as according to helpsleddog.org, The Iditarod Trail Committee do not punish rule violators to avoid publicising the competition's illegal activities. Through this, the Iditarod Committee romanticises the race, though it promotes treatments that are considered illegal in terms of the Alaska's anti-cruelty laws, amended in 2010, which states that a person who commits cruelty to animals, physical pain or suffering on an animal may prohibit the custody of these animals for up to 10 years. Through the culture cultivated by the dog race, it is inevitable that the dogs will be subjected to cruel behaviour, as the premise of the rule itself is cruel. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we, the affirmative team, strongly believe that the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race should be permanently cancelled, as the race promotes animal cruelty behaviour, and this should not be condoned. The participating dogs, or dogs bred specifically for the event, deserve a basic level of rights, life and respect, regardless of any traditions or materialistic factors. Thank you.
I call upon the first negative speaker to answer Hatchetour.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for today's debate is that Iditarod Trail Sled dog race should be permanently cancelled. We agree with the definition given by the affirmative team. However, we, the negative team, believe that this statement is false. Today, as first speaker, I will be talking to you about some of the misconceptions of dog sledding and the care and relationship between the mushes and the dogs. Our second speaker will be talking about the historical, economical and overall value to the participants of this event. Our third speaker will rebut and sum up our team's case. Before I begin, I would like to point out some obvious flaws in the opposition's argument. The first speaker of the affirmative team has tried to tell you that the sled dogs have to endure very harsh climates and environments. As I will further elaborate in my speech, this is certainly incorrect. According to Dr. Michael Davis, professor at the Oklahoma State University Center for Veterinary Health Sciences, Iditarod dogs possess a unique metabolism that allows them to adapt to strenuous exercise. The dogs have also adapted to the cold temperatures. They have a double layer of thick fur that insulates their body and keeps them at a consistent temperature. Now to my first point. One of the many misconceptions about Iditarod dog sledding is that the dogs are treated poorly. The main reason that people believe that Iditarod dog sledding race should be cancelled is because they believe the dogs are overworked and are not allowed to take breaks. And they believe that they have been proven to be false according to Dog.International. There are several compulsory layover times for mushes that must be at least 2 to 10 minutes long and must be done several times during the race, in which the dogs are also given a checkup by a team of veterinarians at each checkpoint. Advancements in the veterinary care have helped ease the physical stresses that the events put on the dogs. According to Dr. Susan Witten, a dog sledding veterinarian, the dogs are given massage therapy to ease their muscles and are fed high-energy, high-fat foods specifically to build the density of their coat so that they can withstand the harsh temperatures. Furthermore, these dogs cannot actually be treated cruelly by their owners, as there are fines put in place for the mistreatment of dogs. According to the Animal Welfare Institute, every person who overdrives, overloads, drives when overloaded, or overworks any animal is guilty of a crime punishable as a felony to a fine of $20,000. Thus, Iditarod should not be permanently cancelled, as the dogs are in fact well cared for, and there are several rules put in place to make sure the dogs are not overworked. Now to my second point. Dogs are highly trained for this race and are only allowed to partake in the marathon if they are in optimum physical and mental health. These dogs are bred and trained to be canine equivalent of ultra-marathoners, as they are known for their ability to cover extremely long distances. The dogs are treated with respect and their health is always put first by their owners and trainers. A case study conducted by Dr. Tim Reeves, a veterinarian who has volunteered in a myriad of dog races, has closely observed the way that these dogs have been treated. He concluded from his observations that the only way sled dogs can run at such a high level is with positive reinforcement and plenty of food. He further stated that the negative attitudes towards dogs would never work in the long run, and the fact that he had never observed abusive behaviour in any race that he had volunteered in. Throughout his experience as a trail veterinarian, he was overwhelmed with the level of care and love shown to sled dogs by their musher companions. Dr. Reeves said the enthusiasm and eagerness of the dogs at the start of the race assured him that they loved what they did. As you can tell from his first-hand experience, the dogs really do enjoy their time and are treated with kindness. Their physical health is also cared for. Dogs that did not pass the pre-race EKG screenings, blood tests and other exams were not allowed to run. Thus, only dogs that are capable of withstanding these conditions are allowed to participate. Due to the effort put into these dogs' mental and physical health, we can confirm that these dogs undoubtedly enjoy racing, as it was what they were born and trained to do. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we believe that it is obvious that the Iditarod dog sledding should not be permanently cancelled due to the enjoyment that both the mushers and the dog get from it and the fact that they are cared for properly at all times. Thank you.
I call upon the second affirmative speaker, Tiffany Zhu.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race should be permanently cancelled. We, the affirmative team, strongly believe that this statement is true. Our first speaker tonight talked about the ethical side to this topic and how the dog's well-being are not being protected by the rules in place, as well as the lack of punishments for not following them. Tonight, as second speaker, I will be talking to you about how the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race causes financial loss as well as its environmental damage. Before I begin, I first like to point out some flaws in the opposition's arguments. The first negative speaker stated that the dogs have adapted to the harsh conditions and they have been bred to run. However, these dogs should not be just bred to race, and this should not be their only purpose. She also stated that the dogs are treated well. However, these rules are not enforced. The fact that they are dying shows that they are not treated well. Now to my first point. Firstly, the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race is financially losing funding, resulting in cuts on prize money. According to Anchorage Daily News, the prize money will decrease by half from $500,000 to $250,000 this year unless they receive a large boost in funding. It also states that Jason Mackey, who won $11,614, placing 21st in 2017, would only earn $1,046 for the same finish this year. The money is already not enough to ensure good care for all the dogs for a whole year, with the amount of food, hygiene levels and vet bills and more. These significant budget cuts puts pressure on dog owners as their dogs and kennels require certain levels of money in order to provide not only a bare minimum level of care, but care that supports the well-being of the animals. Furthermore, the chief executive of the Iditarod race already mentioned that last year they gave out more prize money than their overall earnings, and this also significantly impacts the quality of the race, ensuring that the dogs, as well as their owners, are safe. A report from Washington Post already states that 6 of the 9 board members have withdrew due to their interest with the race's outcome. Essentially, the race is not worth what comes out of it, especially as the public is already losing interest in a competition that is consequently facing economic constraints. This also demonstrates the losing faith of the public in the race due to its poor conditions. My second point is that environmentally, global warming is one of the key reasons why this race cannot be held. USA Today, as well as New York Times, both state that the race has been cancelled previously due to the lack of snow, forcing a lot of pressures on Bush's financially. Ladies and gentlemen, this sled race is already causing damage to the beautiful terrains, and if the terrain becomes less like it's renowned for, then the race will lose a lot of its value, as the terrain is a vital piece of this race. Furthermore, the sled and dogs, as careful as they would be, will still dirty the snow, meaning that the snow becomes unable to reflect the sun's rays, causing it to melt a lot faster and contributing to global warming. Global warming is a major contributor to the decreasing value of this race. Though this isn't by virtue of the race, it does have a significant impact on whether the race can or cannot proceed. This is an uncontrollable factor. However, this irreversible damage is only strengthened when the race is undertaken. Essentially, the sled race is contributing to the effects that ultimately devalue it and what it encompasses. Though banning the race cannot stop global warming, it can relieve a huge pressure on the environment and preserve the already declining image of Alaska's renowned scenery. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we, the affirmative team, believe that the Iditarod sled dog race should be permanently cancelled for all the reasons stated above. After all, as stated by Washington Post, everywhere the Iditarod turns, it has a problem. Thank you.
I call upon the second negative speaker, Georgie Devine.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race should be permanently cancelled, and we, the negative team, believe that this statement is undoubtedly false. Before I begin my points, I would like to point out some clear flaws in the opposition's argument. The second speaker of the affirmative team stated the financial and environmental aspects of her team's argument. In her financial points, she tried to explain that the Iditarod race is financially losing money. This is false because, as I'll explain further in my points, the Alaskan community gains large amounts of money in consequence of the tourist attraction. Therefore, this clearly shows that the Iditarod dog sledding competition should not be cancelled. In their environmental points, she clearly falsely stated that the Iditarod races have a detrimental impact to nature. This is false because, as Iditarod.edu states, the racing course is maintained during the year and used and protected for the race. This is also a historical event and the area is protected because of its value. Therefore, this obviously shows that this point is inaccurate. Now I'll begin to share with you my key points. First, the Iditarod sled dog race should not be permanently cancelled due to its historic value. According to the official Iditarod website, Joe Reddington, the current organiser of the race, had two reasons for continuing the long-distance race: to save the sled dog culture and Alaskan Huskies, and to preserve the historical Iditarod Trail between Seward and Nome. There is no doubt that the Iditarod Trail between Seward and Nome has significant historic value. According to the CNN, the trail was used in 1925 to transport medical supplies from Seward to Nome when Nome was in the midst of experiencing a diphtheria outbreak. The Iditarod dog race therefore has great significant historical significance as it brings lights back into the track's past, thus it should definitely not be cancelled. Now to my second point. The Iditarod Trail dog race should not be permanently cancelled due to its significant economic value. 68 mushers completed the 2018 race, according to the Iditarod.com. They came from all over the world, including from Sweden, Norway and Japan, only to name a few. If each team has at least 5 players, the head musher, backup musher, dog handlers and a team manager, so there's 68 teams and each team has 5 members. This is 340 people competing in the competition altogether, including spectators and families. Such an event could attract as much as 1,000 people to an otherwise quiet and dormant town during the Alaskan winter. Also, these people need accommodation, food and entertainment. And as these factors build up, it is easy to see how the Iditarod Trail has great economic value and should not be cancelled. Finally, this sled dog race should not be permanently cancelled and is beneficial from all that is involved. This also includes animals and humans. Sarah Adams, a musher of the dog race, says that she shares a bond with not just one, but all of the dogs. And that not only does she benefit from the relationship with her dogs, but as an article written by Dr. Freeman of the Utah State University, being in the presence of a companionable animal associated with health benefits, including improvements in mental, social and psychological health. Additionally, animals who have benefited throughout this race are specifically bred and adapted to live in the snow. According to a recent interview done by the National Geographic, Susan Sheffield, a musher, says that the dogs are doing what they're bred to do. They love to run and they go nuts every time she pulls out the lead. They just love it. This is supported by another musher, Stuart Nelson, who also states that anyone who has ever witnessed a dog sled race can see the enthusiasm that the dogs demonstrate for their sport. Running is what they're born and what they love to do. So it's clear that these dogs are loving what they do, and that the Iditarod sled dog race is beneficial for all involved, both dogs and humans. Therefore, it should not be cancelled. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, due to the huge historic and economic value, as well as the beneficial for all involved, the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race should not be permanently cancelled. Thank you.
I call upon the third affirmative speaker, Holly Woolman-Craddock.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. As you have heard, the topic of tonight's debate is that the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race should be permanently cancelled. We, the affirmative team, strongly believe that this statement is true. Firstly, I'd like to point out the flaws in the opposition's arguments. The first speaker of the negative team has tried to tell you that there are common misconceptions surrounding the sled dog race. However, this is evidently incorrect because the supposed misconceptions that they stated outline that there was a positive relationship for dogs within the race. However, as our first speaker explained, animal cruelty is incredibly prevalent with a culture of exploitation within the race, particularly given that 150 dogs have died in the race in the past 45 years. Furthermore, just because there are misconceptions in terms of what occurs in the race, doesn't necessarily mean that what occurs outside of the race can be measured. As such, in training, dogs may possibly be subjected to various forms of animal cruelty, which cannot be controlled within the race. So this is only as such giving half the story. The first speaker of the negative team also stated that the relationship between a dog and its musher is positive. However, this is clearly incorrect, because if we look at various examples from the race, in one occurrence of the race in 1987, one musher was banned for life when they were accused of harming their dog to the extent in which they were severely injured. Yet, 9 years later, they were allowed back into the race, according to Business Insider. As such, this demonstrates that, in fact, mushers can subject their dogs to horrific treatments, particularly given the fact that, in the first place, they're entering these dogs into a race which they knowingly are aware of the fact can kill various dogs, with 80% of dogs that finish the race having lung damage at the conclusion of it, according to Business Insider. The second speaker of the negative team stated that the race has historic value. However, ladies and gentlemen, just because something has historic value doesn't make it humane. If we look at historically accepted views within cultures, slavery was once something that was culturally common. However, it was abolished due to the fact that it was inhumane. As such, in applying this to the Iditarod sled dog race, in fact that the race is inhumane and dogs are dying clearly demonstrates that its historic value is outweighed. Furthermore, there are other Iditarod races which do not involve dogs, which can preserve Alaska's historic value. The second speaker also stated that it has economic value. However, in terms of tourism, Iditarod occurs in March, which, according to laborstats.alaska.gov.au, has less than 75,000 people visiting Alaska, compared to its peak time within June, where 525,000 people visit, demonstrating that, in fact, the Iditarod sled dog race is not an extremely high tourism contributing factor. They also stated that the Iditarod sled dog race is beneficial for all. However, it's not beneficial for everyone as such, because the fact that even one single dog is harmed shows that it's not beneficial for that individual dog. Furthermore, it promotes a culture of exploitation of animals within society, which is negatively impacting society, not beneficial. To summarise my team's case, our first speaker explained the inherently unjust treatment of animals within the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race. She outlined the clear animal cruelty breaches of the race, with many dogs being injured or even killed throughout it, creating a culture of exploitation for which it's not only normalised, but accepted. Furthermore, she explained that the rules of the race cannot be enforced to an extent for which animal cruelty can be prevented, and are extremely inadequate in terms of animal welfare. Our second speaker outlined the negative economic and environmental impacts of the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race. She described the clear economic losses that can occur through the race, particularly due to increased costs through training and the actual cost of cancellations of the race, which outlined that though some people win prize money, as a whole, the majority do not, meaning that they do not benefit. Furthermore, she explained the environmental damage that the race can bring to the supposedly untouched terrain of the Iditarod Trail. In conclusion, we, the affirmative team, strongly believe that the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race should be permanently cancelled. We believe this because through the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race, a culture of animal cruelty is fostered. Furthermore, the rules cannot be enforced to an extent where animal cruelty can be prevented, particularly through training that occurs for the race. Finally, there are economic losses that can occur through it, particularly given that in 2018, the race actually ran at a loss, and environmental damage can occur to the supposedly untouched terrains of its location. Ladies and gentlemen, the Iditarod Trail Sled dog race should be permanently cancelled. Thank you.
I call upon the third negative speaker, Victoria Thorpe.
Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the topic for our debate is that the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race should be permanently cancelled. We, the negative team, believe that this statement is false. Before I summarise my team's case, I would like to point out some flaws in the opposition's argument. The first affirmative speaker tried to tell you that dogs participating in the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race are victims of animal cruelty. This is false because, as stated by our first speaker, Alaskan Huskies love to run and it's a part of their instinct. In fact, National Geographic explains that these dogs have an incredible ambition and enthusiasm for sledding because this is what they were bred to do, run through all kinds of harsh conditions, especially the snow. Organisations such as People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals criticise the treatment of dogs involved in this competition. However, Iditarod CEO Stan Hooley says that implications made by said organisations are misleading and that his team takes every step to ensure the best possible care, respect and love towards participating huskies. Therefore, the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race has no involvement with animal cruelty and should not be cancelled. She also tried to tell you that the Alaskan climate is too harsh for the dogs. This is wrong because sled dogs have adapted to the freezing temperatures. According to purina.com.au, the shape of their armoured eyes allow them to see clearly while barely exposing the eye tissue. They even have natural earmuffs and a thick coat of fur on the interior of their ears to prevent damage to the ear canal. They are covered in a double coat of fur, which works together to provide a double layer of warmth as an insulator, keeping their core temperature consistent, and an outer layer of hair called the guard hair coat to prevent ice and snow from building up in the dog's hair. It is therefore evident that these dogs can withstand the harsh temperatures. The second affirmative speaker tried to tell you that it is bad that the Alaskan Huskies were bred to run. However, this species was bred a long time ago, and considering the love that these dogs have for running, there is no reason for us to take away this opportunity from them. She also tried to tell you that the Iditarod competition winners are beginning to receive less prize money, and the competition should therefore be cancelled. This is clearly going a bit far. A decrease in prize money is not enough of a reason to shut down a competition with such great historical and cultural value, as explained by our second speaker. She also tried to say that nowhere near enough money is earned during the Iditarod race. This is wrong because, as stated by our second speaker, a lot of money is being produced through the need to provide accommodation, food and entertainment to all participants. The third affirmative speaker has tried to tell you that there are no misconceptions about the Iditarod competition and that we are only giving half of the story. However, saying that all claims about animal cruelty are true also only gives half of the story. Exaggerations should always be accounted for, and it cannot be assumed that all claims are valid. She also said that dogs have died during the Iditarod competition. While this is true, Stan Fu from the Iditarod Trail Committee Board of Directors made it clear that dog deaths during the competition are simply not acceptable. According to Anchorage Daily News, a new regulation has been put in place to disqualify any musher whose dog has died on the trail, unless the death was solely the result of unforeseeable external forces. Moreover, the Iditarod community clearly has no tolerance of dog deaths, and this is definitely not enough of a reason for the entire competition to be cancelled. I will now summarise my team's case. Our first speaker talked to you about various misconceptions of dog sledding, including the conditions of participating dogs, breaks during the race, and veterinary attention. She then proved these misconceptions false by explaining that mushers are subject to several compulsory layover times throughout the race, during which their dogs are fed, massaged, and checked up on by a team of vets. She also stated that the Animal Welfare Institute has put various regulations in place, including a $20,000 fine, in order to ensure that the dogs involved are treated with care and are not overworked. She went on to demonstrate the respectful and loving relationship between mushers and sled dogs, as shown through a case study conducted by Iditarod veterinarian Dr. Tim Reeves. Reeves spoke about the physical tests and screenings that ensure all competing dogs are capable to run in the extreme conditions of the Iditarod Trail, and thus helped us to understand the physical and emotional state of these dogs. Our second speaker explained the significant historical value of the Iditarod sled dog race, that according to co-founder Joe Reddington, was organised with the intention of saving Alaskan Husky sled dog culture and preserving the historical Iditarod Trail. She also spoke to you about the economic value of the competition and the importance of producing money for Alaska through accommodation, food and entertainment. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the historical value, economic benefits and care shown towards participating dogs clearly prove that the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race should not be cancelled. Thank you.